So hi everybody. I think we're
Hi, hi.
we're we're getting pretty full here. We're gonna jump right in and make the most of our hour. And I want to just thank in advance Gina Kaplan and Deb Kirsch for being my tech support. I count on them so much to make this go smoothly. So now that you've figured out how to get online, and if you and Deb and Gina, maybe you can mute everyone for a minute, for a little while. I'll invite you to unmute at different times.
Okay, I'm going to mute everybody, Rabbi, and then you'll have to unmute yourself, okay?
I'll unmute myself.
There we go.
Thank you. So now that you've made it onto Zoom and you see all these little boxes of lovely faces that make our community, you might be home alone, but you're not alone. You're surrounded by people who are making this amazing commitment over these past weeks, and I hope long into the future, to be the people we've always wanted to be, to make the small changes that allow us to move forward in our lives and know that incrementally we are living up to those highest ideals that we have for ourselves, and different character traits that are so malleable. Even if we think we're stuck, we're never stuck. We can always move forward. So as we enter this third class and our last class together in this series, I invite you just to take a minute. We're going to take just a couple deep breaths together. You can close your eyes. I find that it helps me put aside what might have been going on before I got here. So close your eyes or soften your gaze. Put your feet on the ground. And just take some deep breaths. And maybe as you inhale, you can think of a midah that you've been working on. And as you exhale, think of that small step you want to take forward in that midah. Where do you want to find balance? So just take a few breaths like that. Think of the midah in and out, this small step. And maybe as we sit here together and just meditate, just breathe quietly, watch our breath, maybe you can even turn that into a prayer, an opening prayer for our session together, and include that midah. So I wrote a few examples of those. I'll just share as you sit quietly, and then you can make your own prayer. May I move toward equanimity, toward a quiet spirit, even when noise and drama swirl all around me. Equanimity. And a breath in and a breath out. Shmirat hadibur, watching my tongue, my words. May I choose my words with care. May I choose my words with care. And breathe in and breathe out. Attentive listening, Shmirat ha'ozen. May I listen fully with kind ears and an open heart. Listen attentively with kind ears and an open heart. And if you feel like it, maybe there's a midah that I didn't touch on that you have a very short prayer to open our time together. A midah and a short prayer. If you do, just push the raise hand button and Deb and Gina will look. Just a little prayer with a midah that you're working on.
Come here.
So I see Terry wrote one in the chat. May I simplify my life, all in good order. So her midah is Seder, order, which is so fitting for what's happening now before Pesach, right? We're going to enjoy the Seder, but we got to get it all together before the Seder. Huge, huge one. Anyone else? You can put it in the chat if you prefer instead of unmuting. So I'll add one more, and that is generosity. May we each sense the generosity of everyone else on this call today, this community that we're building, that each of us has so much to give, and we are each enriched by each other's goodness, each other's example, and each other's kindness to us. And yeah.
Zena Rosen Simon says, may I move to peace and order amidst chaos and clutter, creating places of order in the physical and mental space.
Lovely. Thank you, Zena. Thanks, Gina, for seeing that. So I'm going to invite you, if you don't have a prayer to say out loud, just say that prayer in your heart, whichever midah you're working on. And for all of you, I say, Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this come to pass in your life. Whatever you are working toward, may those steps come. I do see a hand with Sue and Dave. I see a hand in the box.
Hi, that patience is my everlasting midot, and I thought that I pray that with patience I can appreciate that time can be my friend, not my enemy, and that being patient is being kind to myself.
That's so nice. And Dave, and I'll say Ken Yehi Ratzon, may that be the case. Dave is helping us understand again, and I'm pointing it out especially for newcomers to Mussar. Every midah links and connects to other ones. So Dave's talking about patience, but he's also talking about chesed, about compassion. We pretty much can't do any progress on any of the midot if we don't have compassion for our own foibles and our own mistakes and the times that we are moving forward and then we step back again. So chesed is a huge piece of how we can move forward. Thanks, Dave. I think someone else wrote in the chat. So Ellen Montague said, may patience alleviate the anger. In our small group last week when I was with Ellen, we talked about things you could do to separate the match and the flame. And I remembered that one of the Mussar teachers said that if you feel anger coming, you should go get a big, tall glass of water and drink 10 gulps of water before you say another word. And I think that's just such a good practical way to lower the temperature in our insides. And Jane Sedley said, alacrity, Zirizu, may I face challenges and projects with joy and enthusiasm. Thanks, Jane. Thank you. So if you were able to print out the documents that that Jen sent out, great. And if you didn't, we'll have a screen share of the poem that's called The Path and Other Paths. So Gina, if you can put that up, please. And you can just look at the screen. So just to tell you, this poet, Rosemary Wachtoller Traumer, is an amazing poet who manages to write at least one poem a day and send it out. So you can sign up for her poem a day. And I find her poems pretty spectacular, not every day. I mean, who could write a great poem every day? But she writes a pretty good poem every day. And sometimes they're just, they just speak to my heart. So I put her website on there. It says wordwoman.com. You can become one of her recipients if you're a poetry person. And a lot of times her poetry speaks to one Midah or another. And this one came this week. And I keep talking about the Mussar path, and this seemed to speak to that, that path that we're on as Mussar. So her path poem is The Path and Other Paths, So Many Ways to Do It Right. This longing to get it right, to not only find the right path, but to walk it with grace, without stalling, without stumbling. But the forest is dark and deep, and the paths are many, and I fall. And in falling, I stop. So this is what it takes to notice the beauty of being still, to see how staying in place too is a path, how falling too is a grace. How much easier it is to walk now when I trust any path I'm on is the right one. Even this one where I fall, even this one where I don't move at all. And of course, on the surface, I'm thinking of this this time of COVID when we couldn't move very far. We could move from the living room to the kitchen and to the bathroom and to a bedroom, but we weren't moving very far at all. And yet we were moving so deeply in our own experience, our own emotions, our own capacity to take in what was happening to us bit by bit and changing daily. So many emotions during this past year that we have lived together. So I said, Mussar is a winding path of starts and stops and opportunities in them all. So I'll tell you that not just poetry and not just prose and not just encounters with people, but almost anything we encounter in a day can open our eyes to the Mussar path. There's so many. And so this little note here, gifts of eggs from gardener. Our gardener came and we were talking about the plants that were doing very poorly. And it was kind of an upsetting discussion about why they were doing poorly and how we had to replace them. And then we made a good plan. And then I was feeling a little better. And then we said goodbye and she went to do her work. And about 2 minutes later, she knocked on the door and she said, "Do you eat eggs?" And you can take down the screen share, Gina, please. I said, "Yes, I eat eggs." And she says, "Oh, I have chickens." And she handed me a full dozen eggs from her chicken coop. And I was just so overwhelmed by her generosity. It was just such a sweet thing that she brought these eggs for us. And so I was feeling that her generosity and her listening to me so closely when I was talking about these plants and how she could tell I was emotional about these little plants that were making it, and she just listened. So she gave me not just the eggs, but she gave me the generosity of her listening and her caring and her love of the garden as well. But then I opened the box. So Gina, show the photo. That's the color of real eggs. I'm sure those of you who have chickens, you can see I quickly made a scrambled egg because one's missing. But the color of the eggs just brought tears to my eyes. They were so beautiful. And so then I was feeling awe, and I was feeling the awe of God being able to create something of such beauty, the chickens and the eggs being that come from them. So every moment can be a learning, can be a path, as the poet says. We can really find that joy, the midah of joy, of generosity, of wonder at every moment. Okay, yeah, thank you. So I'm going to ask Roy and Janet to share a little bit. I don't know which of you wants to go first. Maybe you've decided.
I'll go first.
Thanks, Janet.
So I know alacrity was one of the themes of last week's Parsha, so I don't know if just by coincidence we're doing it now.
We'll talk a little bit more about alacrity in a few minutes, but you're kind of launching us in it, so you can connect it to whatever you want.
Okay, my two favorite traits are Seder and alacrity. And I'll talk now about alacrity. There are a number of things I like about alacrity. Number one, it's kind of an obscure word. It's not a word that's commonly used. Some people don't even know what it means. So I kind of like that. I like the notion of sort of covering myself with a cloak of alacrity, an invisible cape of alacrity. And I find that it's transformative on a somatic and a kinetic level, that my arms move in a greater wide of motion. My legs move more. I'm just more active physically, and I feel a smile coming on my face, because you can't be enthusiastic and have a frown. So enthusiasm is associated to me with joy. So those are the things, and then it kind of builds on itself. The alacrity builds on itself. One of the things we've noted in the Talmud is the importance of a pleasant countenance, that it's important to greet everyone with a smile and to even be the first one to smile. And so I think alacrity and enthusiasm is part of that. And so the little prayer that I have, or little saying, is may I act with alacrity as I start and as I restart, with a smile and graceful motions.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Roy, do you want us to put your screen share up, or you want to talk for a minute first?
Let's talk first.
Okay.
First of all, I want to thank you, Rabbi, because you started me on my Mussar journey 8 years ago. And I retired about 5 to 6 years ago. And many were worried about the fact that I was so busy in my professional life that I'd be bored in retirement. Well, it's absolutely not true. I feel the gift of time. It's like having Shabbat every day. Even before I retired, Janet and I participated in a couples group with the Winnigs and the Lambs and the Gershons. For about a year, when I transitioned my life to Davis, there was no Mussar group or teaching. So we sought out a Mussar instructor in the region outside of Sacramento, and we asked her if she would start some groups at the synagogue, because Rabbi Greg hadn't done much work with Mussar. We also asked Rabbi Levine to come up and do a Shabbat morning with his wife. And that was wonderful. And now we have, every 3 months, we have our own homegrown Mussar Shabbat morning service. After my multiple back surgeries, I decided that I needed to start to meditate because I didn't want to take pain meds. So I took a course in mindful-based stress reduction, and I've done meditation. Now I looked on my little app, my Insight Timer, for almost 4 years, almost every day. And in the last year, I started journaling. And I think it's really been helped me. Thank God I'm well and pain-free. I also recently started meditating, and I see you occasionally on, and Marianne Winnig and some of the other Isaiah folks on the IJS site with that meets. By the way, people, I'll sell it, 9:30 in the morning, free. You can get 30 minutes, including a wonderful drash from a rabbi or a cantor, and then at the end, if you're saying Kaddish, you can say about 10 minutes of meditation and Kaddish. I also now have had for the last 2 years Chavruta up here with 2 other friends, and we've met weekly, every single week for the last 2 years, except for on occasional. We have to miss it because someone's out of town. So I feel that Zerizut is really what I've embraced in my retirement. It's really made a difference in my life. I've taken on the mantra, just say yes. And I am involved in social justice, criminal justice reform here, politics, volunteering, and I've gotten engaged in the synagogue up here. Sadly, all the years I was living down there, I just didn't have the time to get involved. I've done a few things also out of my comfort zone. Right now, I'm taking Yiddish classes. I'm taking I've been cooking, and I actually sing in our lay-led Shabbat song leaders, and I've been doing some fused glass pieces, so trying to get my right brain, So I'd like to share the teaching that I heard just recently, and you can screen share that, please. This is a teaching from Rabbi Mark Margolius, who actually runs the SIT from IJS, and from Denny Marshall, who's my local, our local Mussar teacher. She's also a student rabbi in the renewal program. We keep the fire, the Zerizut, alive by fully inhabiting life, by being present to each moment. We can cultivate seeing each thought, each conversation, relationship as an opportunity for Zerizut. The Baal Shem Tov said we should wake up daily with Zerizut because we are able to serve God in all things. No task is too small or too unimportant, and there is always something waiting for us which serves God's purpose in the world. Whether we are the Betzalels, that's the Bezalel who was the one who helped build the Mishkan at age 13, it's amazing, or one of the unnamed persons running to give a generous contribution for the building of the Mishkan. We all matter, and we're all part of the solution.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Roy and Janet. You make me feel like I should be doing more. Thank you. When I get my Zerizut in gear here. So why Zerizut? Janet, was asking why Zerizut, why enthusiasm? And actually, I'm going to flip them. I have 2 midot I want to focus on today and walk you through how to focus on a midah and maybe take it through your week. Or for me, sometimes I focus on one midah for a month, even if it's something that I really want to make some serious progress on. I want to keep it in my mind through the month. But because the Seder is so much almost upon us, and those of us who do take spring cleaning, Seder cleaning seriously have begun that work. So I thought Seder order was a good midah to use. And for Seder, for putting things in order, we really do need Zerizut. I think those 2 are linked. If you can't get off the chair, it's very hard to kind of put things where they need to be. unless what you're working on is the chaos in your own brain, in my own brain. So there's different kinds of order that we need in our lives. It's such an all-encompassing midah for us, and we can use it in all these different arenas. So I want to walk you through, how do we do this Mussar? And now Alan Marinis in the Everyday Holiness, he's going to give you a lot more detail about how to go through the practice. And he's going to give you a lot of details about the different rabbis and teachers. And this is going to be kind of a condensation of that. But if you use these steps, you're going to be able to take a midah and really make some progress with it. So Gina, if you could put up the text, what did we call it? The order or
Practicing.
Practicing.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Here you go.
So how do we start? It usually in Mussar practice, we start with some kind of text. Now the text could be the picture of the beautiful eggs. And I loved Terry's comment that that when you crack the eggs open, they all look the same inside, which is a good racial justice metaphor. So there's another thing to look at. Thank you, Terry. And also, my sister Lori said she clearly made an effort, the gardener, Anne, made an effort to give me a beautiful collection. She could have given all green or all red, but she did take the time to make it a beautiful and satisfying collection of eggs. So anything could be a text, but if you look at a traditional text, here's one for Seder. So let's see, maybe, let's see, who's in my, Lori, if you're there, my sister, can you read Rabbi Menachem Mendel Leffen's text?
To practice Seder, to allocate a set time for each and every thought and analysis, freeing time and space for each and every affair in the world of action, and setting boundaries for each so that one does not intrude upon the other. One should be extraordinarily careful not to allow oneself to become confused and must condition oneself to focus attention on what one is doing at that moment. Avoid multitasking.
Okay, so stop there. Thanks,
Okay.
Lori. So what is Rabbi Menachem saying? So these were a few of my thoughts that I had when I read it, but you might have had other thoughts, but it's so relevant. Now look at the dates of Rabbi Menachem Mendel's life, 1749 to 1826. And what's he cautioning against? Multitasking.
Cell phones.
Cell phones, texting while you're on Zoom or sending your emails, or he's saying do one thing at a time and give it all your attention. Don't confuse yourself. He's talking about mindfulness, what Roy was saying before. Attend fully to the present moment. Be in this moment. Not last year, not your worries about tomorrow. Be in this moment. I think he's also saying, are you holding too much at once? Can you divest? And what do we need to divest of? Our tasks, maybe there's too many all at once. Maybe they're overburdening us. Worry, this could all be about anxiety and jumbled thoughts. Our possessions, ego, chametz. Maybe you have too much chametz, puffed up metaphysical chametz, schmutz. We all have a lot of schmutz in our houses. Can we clean it up in our emotional houses, in our physical houses? Maybe it's regrets that are clogging up and disordering our world. And what is the opposite? Gather your zirizut, your purpose, your energy, your enthusiasm, your alacrity, and take a step toward Seder. Toward Seder. Now, what gets in the way? Can you take this away just for a second, Gina, and we can look at everyone, and I'm going to ask you to put it back on in a minute. Jean, there we go. So if you can just put your hand up, and Deb and Gina can scan. What gets in the way of when you know what it is you need to do, what the chaos is, whether it's internal chaos, it's external chaos, it's too many things? What stops you from taking a step toward Seder, toward order in that chaos? What gets in the way? Does anyone have a thought? Do you know what gets in the way for you? So Laura, I see your hand. But use the hand thing so that they can find you. But go ahead, Laura.
And Sue and Dave's hand were up out also. Oh, there they go.
Okay. Yeah.
Just the overwhelm of how much there is, the mass, my lack of faith that I can get through it.
Okay, so now we've got Seder order, we've got zirizut. Your zirizut is stopped before it even starts because there's just too much. Okay. Harriet had her hand up.
Prioritizing, which goes along with the same thing. It's what to do first. And then it's like, but I really should do that. Oh no, maybe this. And then I'm paralyzed.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to ask a question, Harriet, of you. What would happen if you did the wrong thing first?
Of course, nothing. It would start, which is,
right.
Yeah, I always
so
think
anything is better than you
yeah.
said nothing. Okay.
Suzanne has an offering.
This.
Yes. Krasna, Suzanne Krasna. I have to fix my sign. But the first thing that came to my mind is, well, first of all, ditto to everybody, to all your comments. I definitely run into all of that. But the first thing that came to mind was time. I'm always dealing with the issue of time. It's like the centerpiece of my life. It's the good, bad, and the ugly.
that you don't have enough time.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Or that I don't set aside time, or I don't manage time.
Okay. So time is hard. Okay. All right. Aliza?
I find that I either want to do or accomplish too much. So, and I kind of feel like it's all or nothing. And then that becomes very overwhelming. And then I get distracted by something that might be easier to do. So I start that before I finish the first one.
So the rabbi's comment is a really good one. Like, focus on what you're doing and don't just like have blinders. And then you finish it and then you have this sense of accomplishment. This is for Harriet too. Even if it's the wrong thing, then you have more alacrity, you have more enthusiasm because you feel so good that you finished something. Phyllis.
Well, ditto on the time. I find that I misjudge how long each of my multitasking things might take, and so then I get myself in trouble. I have a problem with overcommitting and wanting to please others, and so I'll sign up for things like the Women's Seder, and then I got into something else yesterday and missed it, you know. So things that are on my list don't always get checked off, and I too would rather do garden weeding than working on my taxes. You know, that was what was going on yesterday, and then I got it done, but it's my avoidance of some of the tasks that I know need to be done. But
So I want to go back to that first list of 3 things that I told you about in the first session. And that is the very first thing that we need to do is have compassion for ourselves and think about what it is that we're feeling. So when we're about to set about with a task, what am I feeling? Well, I don't want to do this. I'm feeling I don't want to do it. I hate doing my taxes. What would make me want to do my taxes? Well, maybe thinking about how it's going to help my family to do that. It's the law, so I want to do that. I don't want to be penalized. So you go through these different things with compassion, like you're just on the outside looking in. Oh, that's what all this is that's going on with me. So one more, maybe Linda and Mark, you had one.
Okay. Hi. Okay. Expectations that I put on myself that makes me go into overwhelm where I can't get started, or expectations that others have, and then my feeling of obligation to fulfill the expectations that others have for me.
So all that's going on in your head instead of just getting in there and doing it. Isn't that interesting how we just kind of take ourselves out of the moment instead of just doing it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, really, really interesting.
Sundari has her hand up as well.
Oh, Sundari, thank you. Okay, last one, Sundari, you get the last example.
Thank you. So much that needs uncluttering are other people's, dead people's, children who have left, and I feel invading other people's spaces when I go to think about cleaning these areas.
Oh, interesting.
And it's really hard for me because it's like, but I have like 3 people who've passed stuff around and 2 children who've left.
Well, you set down a rule in your house. If you leave it longer than a year, it's no longer yours. It's coming down to you in a UPS box or something. Yeah, it's hard because that's an emotional component that's going on. That's not just about the things at all, right? So what's going on in your head is keeping you from feeling that energy and alacrity. That's right. That's right. So so we see the different steps. We have a text. We figure out what the text means. We look at ourselves with compassion. How are we sabotaging ourselves from doing what it is we actually want to do? And then we prepare ourselves perhaps with what I was talking about last week with Heat Bodhidut, with just being alone with yourself, isolating yourself from all those other things, people's expectations, that stuff that weighs on you. Go to a quiet, comfortable place and say, what is it I want to accomplish? What can I generate some enthusiasm for that will bring some order into my life? I had this experience. We had chaos throughout the house. Things were on every table, every surface, every day I said, I'm going to clean up, I'm going to bring order. And I couldn't do it because it was too much. There was too much. And then I realized if I just cleaned one surface, I would feel so good. I started with the smallest surface. And it gave me the energy and the enthusiasm and the sense of accomplishment to move on to a larger surface. And I felt so good. I was so excited that I could go on to something else. So sometimes you start with just something very small. One of my teachers said there's something called a minute rule or something. Do something for what that you can do in 1 minute. It turned out I could clear that small surface in 1 minute. 1 minute. So even though we might feel like we don't have time, there's a lot we can do in 1 minute. You can set your timer and you'd be surprised. Now think what you can do in 5 minutes. 5 times as much. And then that enthusiasm is generated. So we're going to continue this conversation in a smaller group. And I want you to find the questions in the what do you call it, chat. And the questions are going to be, does the way I spend most of my time, now remember, I know we all have limited time, does the way I spend most of my time correlate with my intended and declared priorities? The Seder we're hoping for, the order we're hoping for, the goals we're hoping for. If not, what gets in the way? How can I take a step toward putting first things first? And first things first might not be clearing that table. First things first might be giving yourself some quiet time, just for yourself, to find the energy. But you have your own answer. So I'm going to ask Deb and Gina to put everyone in small groups. We'll be with 4 or 5 people for about 12 minutes. So you should have time to share. Make sure everyone gets a little time. Be generous and go for it. We're all back. I hope you all had some good conversation. So just imagine that you're doing this on your own or you did it in a small group. All of these steps, studying a text together, thinking about what the text means, thinking about the other midot that are connected to it, being very compassionate with yourself about how you might progress on this midah. Just a small step. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to accomplish everything and get order in your life immediately, but one little bit of order helps. And then keep a record of what you've accomplished, or keep a record of what you felt. What kept me from doing these things? What was it that someone in our group said, other people's expectations keep me from moving forward in the way I would like to move forward. Emotional ties to things keep me connected in a way I might not want to be connected. So write it down, because that might help you the next time when you realize you're feeling the same thing. It's really good to keep a journal. So those are the steps when you begin to go midah by midah. And I will tell you, you're going to repeat these midot. As Lucy said in our group, she's been working on Seder for 7 years or 8 years, Lucy? So, and so have I. I've been working on a lot of these midot, and I do see some progress, which is very, very heartening. So keep a journal and you can look back and see where you have come from and where you want to go. So I want to turn, before we finish, to Werner Gottlieb, one of my favorite Mussar learners and teachers. I always learn something from Werner when we meet together, and he's going to talk a little bit about how the midot work and what he's learned through his study. So Werner, can you unmute yourself?
I unmuted myself. Okay.
There you go.
I was saying that it's been a wonderful journey. It's been about 8 or 9 years since you first introduced us at the temple to Mussar. Just wanted to say something about balance. That so important, it seems, from all the comments, that we put ourselves on the list. We practice mudar with other people, but we need to practice it on ourselves to give. There are 2 examples I might give. The one that comes back to me again and again and again that I have problems with is patience. So more and more, I realized that in order to have patience with others, we need to have patience with ourselves. And there are two examples, if there's time. One was with a close young friend who has a child with autism. And I was watching as a child was acting up and acting out, really out of control. And the father just sat next to him, calming him, stroking him. And this went on and on. There seemed to be no end to it. And then suddenly the father said, stop. And, you know, I realized he was talking to himself as much as to anybody else. And so he just stopped. He took his hands away. He took 3 or 4 very deep breaths. And he was giving himself a patience. And then he went back to the child and showed the patience to the child. Another was recently with me. I have lots of difficulty with electronics, and I was trying to get on a Zoom conference, and it just didn't work for me. I pushed all the buttons I could, and I was berating myself for being so difficult. And then I stopped. I said to myself, "You're an old man. It's okay. Have some patience with yourself." So I stopped everything I was doing. I took my iPhone down to the desk at the Waterford, where there are young people who know all about these things, and said, "Can you help me with this?" And she took my iPhone. She worked on it, and nothing happened. And then she tried to say something to me, and I didn't understand. I didn't hear her. Then she took out a little notepad and she wrote down, "I think your hearing aids are not okay." So I took out my hearing aids and inserted a new battery, and everything was fine. So I had to first, before I could do anything, I had to show myself patience and exercise that patience. So I think it's that way with a lot of the midot. We need to sometimes take time out and practice on ourselves.
Thank you, Werner. Yeah, as usual, you understand so much, and your examples help us. I just love the young woman at the desk writing the note, and her patience and her compassion.
Yes, it's contagious.
Just because you were patient with yourself, she was able to help you, and instead of pounding on the desk and saying the Waterford has no internet or something, right? You were, which someone else might have done. So Werner emphasizes something that I said in the very first session, and that is that as we start or continue on this Mussar journey, kindness to ourselves is the top priority. Curiosity with ourselves. For some people, this might be the first time in your life, or it might be the millionth time in your life, where the most important step is the first one of asking, how do I actually feel about this? How is this making me feel? What are my emotions in this moment of interaction with someone, of conflict, of wonder? What identifying those feelings allows us actually to make the kind of progress that we want to make, because we're clear then, and that's the kind of order that allows all of the other midot to enrich and enhance and enable us to find a balanced life, to find a life where we really feel like we're living up to and becoming the people that we want to be. And as I said the first session as well, this is not a quick fix. People are not quick fixes. We are meant to be on a path that takes a long time. And as the poet said that we read at the beginning, sometimes it's moving forward. Sometimes the most progress happens when we're shocked still. We've stopped. We have to stop because of whatever else is going on. So just know that the path continues, that we all have the power to change ourselves, that transformation is possible. We're coming up to the Seder, to Pesach, and you know, in biblical times, Passover was the very first new year because there was an agricultural holiday, and spring is the beginning of everything in the year. So this is a new year as well that we're entering, a time to change, a time to think about change, to blossom in the ways that we want to blossom. And we have just, I think, a little bit of time left. I want to end with giving you a whole bunch of resources. I see in the chat, you know, people wanting to do more courses like this. You're going to get an email, I believe, from Rabbi Miller asking you, if you are not yet in a Mussar group, if you would like to join a Mussar group. So there will be a follow-up to this class to enable you to begin studying with other people in a smaller group where you can have a chance to talk and express yourselves and really, really, really make progress. And also there are lots and lots of resources. Roy and Janet mentioned the IJS SIT. The Institute for Jewish Spirituality has a lot of online courses that are fantastic. So does the Mussar Institute. That's the group that posted the podcast that I sent you the link to if you want to listen to it. They have an archive of those kinds of things and you can listen to those. But there's a long list, and Gina, if you could put that resources list up, and you also got it in your email today. You'll get it again when Jen sends out the recording of today's session. So Gina, if you could put that up.
And I just put the link in the chat as well.
Oh, the link's in the chat. Thank you, Deb. So you see there, if you can scroll down, you don't have to read it all now, but you can see there's a lot of resources, a lot of books. Mussar has really taken off in the last now 15, 20 years. So a lot of people have written, and some of these books are just books that I've used for my own Mussar study. Not all are Jewish teachers. Some are Jewish Buddhist teachers. Some are just Buddhist. Anne Lamott is Christian, but I think she's very wise, and she actually has a new book out that I didn't add to this list. And Gina, if you can continue down, we'll just end with the end poem. There's one poem for you to read on your own, but if you pull it a little further, Gina, to the Credo, where it says from Credo, we'll end with this. Before I read it, I just want to thank all of you for being part of this group and bringing your own learning and your own zirizut, your own enthusiasm for learning. To me, it's very, very fun to be teaching you, and I feel so grateful to have been a part of this wonderful undertaking with you. And I want you to keep studying Mussar because it is transformative. So from Credo by Victoria Miller. I want to believe in my own renewing. Let body and spirit rest. Refuse to exhaust myself in someone else's expectations or grow old before my time. I want to be recycled endlessly and flower again and yet again unexpectedly, bloom into a surprising color for an old person, ripe with wrinkled youth and vigorous beauty, with twinkling eyes and deep sockets, making them wonder just how I do it. So how we do it, one of the ways is through the Mussar path of change and renewal, of putting first things first. And those first things could be just sitting, as Huko-sai said in the poem I read last week, sitting and counting the ants on your veranda. That could be enough for today. That might be what you put that first things first. So thank you all. I might see some of you later on the Who Knows One podcast that some of you might be following along with from Temple Isaiah. And just wishing each and every one of you a beautiful, beautiful Pesach. Thank you, Deb and Gina, and thank you all.